The truth occurs.
Hi everyone. A year ago, I posted my first adrenal fatigue recovery video, and I began my own recovery from adrenal fatigue. Here we are a year later, and I'd like to give you an update. A year later, I'm losing weight, and more importantly, I'm feeling alive again. So what was it like for me when I was at the worst with adrenal fatigue? Well, I was tired all the time. I was so tired, I couldn't move. I mean, I would get up and I would just, after a short time, I would feel so exhausted. So it was like I was suffering from something like chronic fatigue. I was burnt out. I wasn't enjoying myself. I couldn't think straight. I had gained about 15 pounds, or 20, depending on when you start counting. I was really losing my ability to enjoy life, even losing my sense of humor, which was scary. I felt like my nerves were shot. I was losing my motivation. I guess you could say that I was pretty depressed. But depression is the name the doctor will give it and recommend an antidepressant without looking at what is going on underneath. Because what I realized was that there is not a one-shot cure. There's not one pill or one thing you can do. You really have to take a mind, body, spirit approach and heal yourself globally. I did figure out that it was adrenal fatigue mainly because of the sleep patterns I was experiencing, which I discussed in my first video. I could get to sleep, but I couldn't stay asleep. I would wake up in the middle of the night all lit up like a light bulb, and I couldn't go back to sleep. Now, if you're wondering what was the cause of this adrenal fatigue, I think that having RLS, restless leg syndrome, had a lot to do with it, because it really disrupts my sleep. And if your sleep quality is poor, it's really going to affect your health after a while, and it's going to affect your mental health, your state of mind, your ability to function. So I think that that had a lot to do with it. But I'd had that for a long time, and I think what tipped it over into really feeling burnt out was not being able to sleep properly, plus a lot of life stress. So as I said, it's mind, body, and spirit, not just one of them. So I'll start with the body part. What did I do to get myself physically healthier? One of the first things I had to do, the very first thing, was to get my sleep in order. I found this at the pharmacy. It was called Relax and Sleep. It sounds like it's an order. Relax and sleep. You better do it. I kind of really had my doubts, but it's just an herbal combo, and surprisingly, it worked really well. It worked to break that cycle of insomnia. I think it helped me get a deeper sleep. And you know, with this kind of thing, it's like things fall out of balance, and at a certain point there's like a tipping point where woo, everything goes off balance, and then what you're trying to do is get things back in balance. So as soon as you start to break the cycle on all these different levels, you go back to more of an equilibrium, and then you start to recover. At the beginning, I also used some herbal supplements like rhodiola and ashwagandha to get my adrenals rebalanced. And in the end, ashwagandha is the one that I prefer the most. I feel really a good, almost immediate effect of rebalancing and calming and re-energizing me. Okay, another thing was, if you're really burnt out and you feel like your nervous system is shot, I would recommend that you get genetic testing and see if you have any strange mutations like MTHFR or MTRR, which is what I have, which is similar. Because if you do, you're going to need different kinds of B vitamin supplements. I mean, B vitamins are good for the nervous system for anyone, but if you have one of these mutations, you really need the active form. Turns out I have one, and I started taking this one from AOR, Active Advanced B Complex. I really think it helped. I don't feel nearly as fried as I used to. Okay, another thing that's very important, I did a whole video on this, was gut flora, and that has a really huge effect on your health. Now, if you're eating a lot of sugar, that's going to mess up your gut flora, or if you have some nasty bacteria in there that have overgrown, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Probiotics are always really good, and I really like kombucha. I've made videos on how to make it because it's a good way to get probiotics, and you can make it at home cheaply. I don't really drink milk in general, but I'll drink kefir sometimes. So I guess that's why maybe I went for kombucha more, because I don't really drink milk. And speaking of things that I don't eat, the other thing was wheat. I had been gluten-free, and then I went off it because, oh, it's so expensive, why bother? But bother I will from now on, because when I went off it seemed to really destabilize me. I don't really know why it has this effect on me, but whatever. I'm going to stop questioning it. I don't really eat a lot of gluten-free products in general. I think lowering the carbs, starches, and sugars, keeping sugar to a minimum, that seems to have helped also. But the other good thing about going gluten-free is it makes it like impossible for you to go to Starbucks or wherever you go and buy junk. It really helps you avoid temptation, because you're like, oh, can't eat that, can't eat that. And it's just like a hard and fast rule, and makes it really easy to say no. Okay, and the other thing was this, which is called Sole, S-O-L-E. When you have adrenal fatigue, you tend to be a bit low in sodium. You take about a cup of this salt, sea salt, and you put it in water in a mason jar. You let the salt sink to the bottom, and you can start with a teaspoon of that brine in your water every day, and it helps to replenish some of your sodium. I know you'd be thinking, well, isn't your blood pressure going to go through the roof? But I don't find that it did. You definitely should talk to your doctor about these kind of things. But if you're drinking a lot of water, if you're really well hydrated, that helps blood pressure anyway. So adding the little bit of salt, it seems to help the water stay in your body. You get hydrated more easily. I'm telling you, since I started drinking this, I definitely started feeling better. Okay, as for exercise, a year ago, if someone had told me to exercise, well, that would have been impossible, because I had really exercise intolerance. I would try to exercise and I would just be leveled for like a day or 2 days or 3 days. I mean, I spent a lot of time in bed doing Sudoku, believe it or not. Okay, at this point though, a year later, now I'm starting to exercise, and I'm not going into this with the goal of I'm going to lose weight. I'm going into this with the goal of I'm going to make my body stronger. I'm doing cardio and I'm slowly training my heart to be stronger. I'm doing weights and I'm training my muscles to be stronger. And I'm just doing it with the goal of being healthier. Okay, now the second part was mind. It was body, mind, spirit. First of all, I had to cut back on a lot of things. You know, I think that these days we have too much to do, too little time, too many roles, and not enough support. So I had to cut back and stop pushing myself so much. And that's not being lazy, that in some cases is taking care of yourself. I had to remove anything unnecessary from my life. That also included toxic relationships. You know, if you have people in your life that are really draining you, you need to get out of those relationships. Decluttering the home. Clutter is linked to depression. The more cluttered your house is, the more cluttered your mind is going to be, the more depressed you're going to be. Seeking laughter. When you're really burnt out and depressed, last thing you want to do is laugh. But laughter is very healing, especially laughing with other people. It's been shown in studies to even lengthen your telomeres. Telomeres being something that when they get really short, you die. So I had to find ways to laugh because I didn't feel like laughing. And so I watched some comedy. And right now, actually, I've been watching the series Everybody Hates Chris, narrated by Chris Rock. Very funny. Oh, and another thing for your mind is mindfulness, which is a sort of be here now, as in, you know, try to focus on what's right here in front of you and what you're doing. And it's a bit like going Zen. It's like the Zen tea ceremony, but you do that with whatever you're doing. And it really helps to calm your mind. And another thing which is good for your mind and your spirit is social connectedness. You got to put a little effort into having relationships with people. You know, when you're really depressed and burnt out, you really just want to isolate yourself. But isolation can just contribute to it. And of course, when you're in a really bad mood, you don't want to be around anyone. But if you have some people in your life that you enjoy and that are supportive and that you can maybe even have a laugh with, then it's definitely worth pursuing that. Don't neglect your friends. Give them a call and ask them how they're doing. Don't call them up and complain about your own problems. Take the focus off yourself. It's actually giving that will help you recover, I think, more than receiving. Yeah, as for spirit, I would say prayer. Not to be underestimated, the power of prayer. It's always really amazed me how much, sometimes, you know, one of my friends would come over and she'd be like, do you want to pray about it? And I'd be like, no. You know, you ever get like that where you're just so negative and you're just stewing in your misery, and your friend is like, let's pray about it. And inside you, you're like, no, I don't want to pray. But then you're like, okay. And then amazingly, after you pray, somehow the burden is lifted. I think it's really important to pray and to have people pray for you. And, to cast your burdens before the Lord. If you're not Christian, I guess you do this in your own way. But as a Christian, that's what I do. And the Lord comes through for me every time. And the other thing was homeopathy. This kind of fits into mind, body, and spirit. I didn't used to believe in it either, but after using it, I found that, well, it works. So, if it works, I'm going to put that in my toolkit. So a year out from when I started my recovery, I would say I'm about 85% recovered. The 15% being the fact that I do have off days. Some days where I just feel like, wow, I'm really right back in the burnout, where I really can't think, or I'm really tired. I tell you guys about all my problems, don't I? But you know why I do it? Because I'm hoping it'll help somebody else. So a year later, this is going really well. And I keep telling you about it because I've seen people burn out in my real life. I've seen people take a nosedive, and I've seen people go down in flames online in full public view, crash and burn. People who are brilliant and active activists, doing so much, making such a difference, completely going down in flames. Probably because they burnt out. It can happen to anyone, and it can really wreck you. So I am willing to put myself out there and say, I'm a burnout. But this is what I did about it. And there's hope. So thanks for listening to me. Thanks for giving me a thumbs up and for leaving your comments. And I'll see you next time.